Ah yes, Reapers. The immortal race of sentient starships allegedly waiting in dark space. We have dismissed that claim.
Just as it turned out many years ago that the Council was incorrect about the Reapers, so too has it turned out that we are likely incorrect about the reality of this Oblivion Remake, which is slated to be revealed anytime in the next couple of days, the next week or 2 weeks, because it seems to be the case that in fact actual images from the remake have been leaked. Now, obviously there's been no official confirmation of this, but they look pretty legitimate and they look pretty real, and so it's very difficult to deny the apparent veracity of this claim or the reality of these images. So let's assume it's true, because that's where the evidence points us, and that's what the evidence suggests. So this Oblivion Remake is releasing sometime very soon, probably next week, based on claims made by purportedly reliable individuals, and we'll go with that. Now, I'm not one to be a conspiracy theory type. I'm not really into conspiracy theories. I'm not much of a conspiracist. I'm pretty bland and middle of the road when it comes to these things. But I sort of have my own little conspiracy theory when it comes to this Oblivion Remake. Now, it's true, before I get into the conspiracy theory, that a lot of people appreciate remasters, and indeed some people appreciate remakes. That's a different type of thing from a remaster, obviously. And Oblivion is just one of those classic games. I have fond memories of Oblivion. I have a lot of nostalgia for the game. And I've mentioned this before in a previous video. I will and almost certainly want to play this Oblivion Remake. So I want to get that out of the way. I think many of us have an interest in this potentially. Because if anything, this remake will probably correct some of the flaws that were in the original game, including some UI stuff, including leveling stuff. Hopefully the combat is more fluid. And above all, the graphics, which you can see based on these screenshots. So it definitely looks better than the original version. There's no question about that. So all that aside, I'm looking forward to this potentially. I'm sure you are too, potentially. But here's the thing. Why are they actually making this remake? Well, to make money, right? I mean, it's an easy money maker. Wow, we're making a remake of Oblivion. It looks better, plays better. They're going to make money, obviously. Sure, but everyone makes games to make money, sort of, at least, right? And why in particular is this remake coming out around now? In the middle of this year of Zeus 2025? Well, here's my conspiracy theory. It's well known that it's very likely that Skyblivion, the player-made mod that's been worked on for nigh on a decade now, will be released in its first official form sometime later this year, probably sometime during autumn, and for years people have been looking forward to this. And Skyblivion, if you're not aware of what it is, I should explain it to you. It is a player-made mod that is basically an entire, from the ground up, remade version of Oblivion, made in the Skyrim engine, worked on by voluntary modders over a very long period of time, many, many years. Everyone is a volunteer, and over the years they've recruited a very large number of volunteers to work on audio things, visual things, coding, you name it, to make it as good as possible, and to make it significantly better than the original Oblivion game looked and played. And so for the longest period of time, the vast majority of us were looking forward to Skyblivion, this incredible mod made with the power of passion and the devotion of those who decided to volunteer their limited and precious time. As many of these people have full-time jobs and obligations in real life, they've devoted their lives to making this mod for the sake of us, the players, for free. This free, amazing, giant mod that is going to remake Oblivion. Sounds great, and it is still great. However, now, on the horizon, there are rumors of war. The armies of Sauron, just kidding. Well, sort of the armies of Sauron in a sense. Because, yeah, this remake seems to be coming out really soon, like I said, based on all the evidence. The people claiming these things. Like this guy, Pirate Nation, who is allegedly a very reliable confirmer of video game leaks on Twitter, right? He says it's real. And we'll talk a little bit more about what he's claiming here in a bit. But needless to say, it's coming out really soon, the same year as Skyblivion. Now again, I'm not a conspiracy-minded person, but I have grown to really dislike Bethesda. And I know Bethesda did not work on this directly, but in general what Bethesda represents and what they want to do with their games, with monetization, and how they regard the customer base in particular. I do think that Bethesda has become fairly malevolent in some sense. I'm sure many of you know the way they reacted to criticism, constructive criticism, mind you, of Starfield and issues people had, was, to put it mildly, dismissive, and to put it less mildly, outrageous. Telling people they were playing the game incorrectly, and that's why they're not enjoying it, and even claiming that it is the best Bethesda game they've ever made, which almost nobody believes, for the record. So what does this do, should we in fact receive this Oblivion remake in the not-too-distant future? Next week, for example. It puts a huge wedge, and arguably a huge blockade, in front of the possibility of people enjoying Skyblivion. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will still play Skyblivion and will have an interest, but if you look at the claim being made by this Pirate Nation chap, it says, as you can see, full remake on Unreal Engine 5 while running on the Creation Engine. Now what does this tell us? It tells us that the assets are being made with the Unreal Engine 5, but it's actually running on the Creation Engine, which suggests that this game could be moddable. Eminently moddable. Because for all its many flaws, the Creation Engine is known for being the engine of modding. Hell, Skyrim is what it is because of the Creation Engine. What happens, lords and ladies, I want you to think about this. When this is released, it turns out that it is eminently moddable, it looks better, vanilla, it plays better, vanilla, it does everything better than not just the old, original Oblivion game, but the forthcoming Skyblivion game. And you can mod it up the wazoo like any other Bethesda game. What happens then? Well, to say the very least, it puts a huge damper on the potential enthusiasm and, for that matter, the interest in Skyblivion. Sure, some people will still play it, but people like shiny things. And if people see that this looks better, it plays better, and you can mod it, will people still have as much pronounced interest in the forthcoming Skyblivion release? Probably not. As I said, I've begun to detect degrees of malevolence in the population of Bethesda, I must say. And whoever directed this, whoever went about this, I can almost guess what happened. This is my conspiracy theory. Because here's the thing. Skyblivion has been worked on now for close to a decade, I think, maybe even longer, potentially. And it's been taking a long time. Understandably, these are voluntary modders who have real lives, full-time jobs, probably families, who knows, and thus they have to work on this mod at a steady, albeit slow pace. They're not receiving any remuneration for this. They're not receiving any form of payment other than the gratitude of the people who enjoy mods. But Virtuos, the studio that's purportedly making this remake of Oblivion, they're paid. They're professional game developers, that's their job, and I'm very, very inclined to think that this is the following scenario that happened. Bethesda, or Microsoft, or whoever it might have been, noticed that there was a lot of enthusiasm for Skyblivion on the part of gamers and the modders themselves. And they thought to themselves, well, there's nothing better than nostalgia. What if we hire professionals, we tell them, make a remake of Oblivion, but make it moddable, and that way we can steal the thunder of Skyblivion and get rid of those pesky modders. Because here's the thing, Bethesda doesn't actually like modders. It's not that they don't like the products and the things that modders make, they love them, because that's the reason why their games sell. It's not because Bethesda does anything. Bethesda has made the Creation Engine, and the Creation Engine allows for the games to be modded to a very high degree. But in terms of their inability to control modders and what modders do, and most importantly, their inability to monetize modders, which they've tried in the past. They wanted to make all the mods on the Nexus for Skyrim and other Bethesda games cost actual money. It was a whole debacle some years back. And indeed, they have their own mods that you can pay for. And they've actually hired some modders, and I'm not necessarily faulting these modders. You know, you have to make a living, you have to get by, I get it. To make mods and then to require people to pay for them. So Bethesda doesn't like modders because Bethesda cannot control most modders, and they cannot make money off of most modders, and therefore they don't like modders. So, what is a great thorn in the side of Bethesda? A bunch of modders working on a passion project for the better part of a decade, investing their precious time in something that's going to be free. Free Skyblivion. You can play it for free. You don't need to spend a red cent on it. And that has got to be really, really annoying to Bethesda. Because hell, don't we live in this current day world of remasters and remakes, and wouldn't it be easy just to knock something out and make a quick buck off of it? Well, of course you can do that, and that's what they've done. To undermine and undercut the work of the modders of Skyblivion. Now, this is a conspiracy theory. I don't have any official proof, but I think the evidence is very suggestive. And obviously Bethesda and or Microsoft would never concede this. They would never say, of course we're doing this to undercut the work of the modders. Because we don't want people's attention drawn to a free remake of Oblivion. We want their attention drawn to the pay-for remake of Oblivion. And I think that's what's happened here, unfortunately. Because at the end of the day, people are psyched about this remake. A lot of people are looking forward to it. And if it turns out to be moddable, if apart from the assets it's actually made in the creation engine, well, that means you're going to be able to do a lot more with this game than just play it bare bones, as is traditionally the case with any Bethesda game. And what does that lead to? Well, here's the thing, right? Mods for Bethesda games, free mods, lead to more sales for Bethesda games. The evidence is ample for this. We have a preponderance of evidence for this, and we can see it in the sales of Skyrim. Skyrim is not the quote-unquote best RPG of all time because of the vanilla form of the game. No. Skyrim is the quote-unquote best RPG of all time because it's been modded left and right, up and down, up to the wazoo. That's why it's the quote-unquote best RPG of all time. And all of those mods were the things that sold the game to the degree it did and made Skyrim the quote-unquote best-selling RPG of all time as well. To a degree that's insane right now. At this stage of the game, with certain software, you can exceed the former limit of 255 or a couple of hundred mods and literally install thousands of mods. People are still playing Skyrim, and some people are still buying it. So, a moddable official remake of Oblivion, that's going to make a lot of money for them. But you know what won't make a lot of money for them? The passion project made by modders called Skyblivion. A free mod available to anyone and everyone. That will make them no money. There you go. That's a conspiracy theory. They saw the writing on the wall. They saw these people making Skyblivion and thought to themselves, we need to beat them to the punch. We need to outstrip them, outdo them in what they're doing. And we can because we're rich, we have money. It will look better. It will play better. And most importantly, it will actually make us money. And even though I have no hard proof of this, there's evidence to suggest that is what has happened. Anyway, as always, thank you for tuning in. If you like my videos, you like my takes, you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's much appreciated, as it really helps out the channel. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will check you out next time. Take care.